Depending on what they are, our habits will either make us or break us. We become what we consistently do. Hi everyone, I'm Savanna and this is Mental Mondays with Savanna, a motivating, mental cleansing, and energy boosting podcast. I focus on how one can improve their mental health while helping you build a better mindset, better habits, and a better life for yourself. I'm a 15-year-old CEO, a passionate storyteller, and an optimistic dreamer who views the world through a different set of lenses. I came on here to share that unique view with you. My biggest hope is that my videos ignite a spark in you to seek your highest potential and so that you can live a life without limits. Let's dive into it. Hey everyone, we are back with another episode of Mental Mondays with Savanna, a place where we focus on improving our mental health, helping build a better mindset, habits, and just a better life for ourselves. Now, for today's episode, we are going to be focusing on the importance of habits and the power that they hold. Have you ever heard of the saying, people don't decide their futures, they decide their habits, and their habits decide their futures? This actually accurately describes our life because James Clear once said, habits are not a finish line to be crossed, but they are a lifestyle to be lived. End quote. So basically, in a nutshell, your wealth, happiness, fitness, success, everything depends on your habits. I heard a great story the other day about habits, and I wanted to share it with all of you. So I think this story will effectively teach us and show us the power of our habits better than any explanation would do. So let me start. A rich man once asked an old wise man to help his son change his bad habits. So the wise man asked his son to take a walk with him through the garden. So after taking a few steps, the wise man stopped and asked the young man to pick a small flower from the ground, a small little weed. The young man grabbed the plant with his fingers and he easily picked it out. So the wise man nodded and they resumed walking. A few seconds later, they stopped again, and the wise man pointed towards another plant, which was a little bit larger than the first. The young man grabbed it, and with his hand, he plucked it out of the ground with a little bit of effort. Now, pluck that one, the wise man said, pointing towards a bush. The young man grabbed the bush, and with both of his hands, using all of his strength, he barely managed to pluck it out of the ground. Now you see that tree there? Try and pluck that one, the old man said. The young man grabbed the trunk with both hands, pulled as hard as he could, but he couldn't even move it. It's impossible, master, I can't do it, the boy said. You see, my boy, it's the same with our habits. If we let them grow and take root, it becomes harder and harder for us to stop them. And that's the story. So I want you all to ask yourself this question. How many times in our life do we let a bad habit take root and become a small tree? What are you doing on a daily basis that you know is wrong and it becomes stronger and stronger each day? Maybe it's spending too much time on social media, not doing your chores, neglecting your education. But will you let these bad habits in your life become so strong that you can't change them? Or do you want to start acting differently from now on? Bob Proctor once said, change is inevitable, but personal growth is a choice. Our lives will always change, but our future is determined by our actions today. And our actions will either give strength to good or bad habits. This is true in school, parenting, healthcare, business, practically all in life. Habits are so important, more than we likely realize. Our brains actually cling to habits more than common sense most of the time. And experts say that in the course of a single day, 40% of the things we do are not actual decisions, but they are habits that we already formed over time. So 40% of my actions are just something that's automatic. It's a habit. So not only are habits important, but they grow stronger and stronger over time, and they become more automatic. So we need to make sure that we have the right ones. Habits are so powerful because they create neurological cravings in your brain, and a certain behavior is rewarded by the release of pleasure chemicals in the brain. So first off, let's just back up for a second and let's talk about what habits actually are, and let's break it down. So there are three main parts when one is creating a habit. First, there is the context cue. Now, this context cue can be an action that happens before the habit occurs, like a time of day, maybe a location, just anything that triggers this behavior. So it's something that associates the habit with itself and lets the habit automatically come to the surface. For example, a common habit that we all have is brushing our teeth when we first wake up. Sometimes we'll be like half asleep, but before you know it, our hand automatically reaches for our toothbrush, you get your towel, and you get yourself ready in the morning. You don't even have to think about it. And that's where the second part comes in, behavioral repetition. Now, I'm sure we've never had to think about brushing our teeth or getting it ready in the morning. We never have to think about it. It just comes natural to us. And last, the third part is the reward, continuing the habit loop. Now, this habit loop works over and over and over again until it becomes automatic. So, the important thing is we need to make sure that they are the right ones. And here's what's alarming. When a habit is developed, the brain fully stops participating in decision making. Now, habits can be really great because they can free up energy that can be focused on other tasks, but unless you intentionally fight a bad habit and replace it with new routines, that behavior will unfold over and over and over again every single time there's a trigger. So the good news is that habits aren't our destiny and they can be changed. All habits can be changed and replaced, but it's not easy because a habit never really disappears. And I'll tell you a secret behind that. It never really disappears. It just gets replaced by new habits. So one example of this is when I was starting my Happy Heart fitness programs. Now, if you don't already know by now, I run a nonprofit organization called Happy Heart Advisors, where I focus on educating people about their hearts, how to prevent cardiovascular disease, and how to live a healthy life through education, teachings, activities, and so much more. So back in 2016-17, I started this program called the Happy Heart Fitness Program to specifically target kids and their families because I believe that prevention starts with educating the next generation and installing healthy habits into their lives at early stages. But anyways, that's a little background. And when I first established my program, it was like back in 2016, 2017, and I was 10 years old and I was in the sixth grade. And around that time, I was generally a shy kid when I was meeting new people. Now, don't get me wrong. If I needed to give a speech or talk to adults about my company, I would do it. But it was so much harder for me talking to other kids my age about it. And I don't know exactly why, but I would always like clench up like a turtle hiding in its shell because I just didn't want to share anything about me. And now looking back at it, I think it was because I didn't want anyone to judge me because I was different and had my own company. But anyways, that's what happened. Now, you all know that this program that I started, the Happy Heart Fitness Program, it's geared towards kids. So that means that I would have to go out into these communities, these schools, and teach a bunch of kids about my program while staying active with them. And it was definitely a first for me and challenging in so many ways because I had to overcome that barrier of shyness and that habit of closing up around other kids my age and older. But over time, my parents helped me realize that when I close up in front of these kids, I'm not able to share my story and I'm not able to share my talent because that's what I came to here to do. I came to share something with them. But if I hide in my shell like a turtle, I'm not going to be able to fulfill that and to change these kids' lives. So, instead of fiddling with my fingers, being anxious and stiff in front of the kids I was working with, I decided that I wanted to change that habit. So I first off I started by relaxing more, and then I started opening up to them more. It was it was a very hard process, but one by one I started asking them questions, treating them like a human being. I started talking to them like they're my best friend. And then the ironic thing was when I opened up to them, some of them actually revealed that they were just as anxious of meeting me too. And this whole process of breaking this habit of shyness and overcoming it, it was really hard. And I had to always remind myself, Savanna, stop closing up. I have this precious talent to share with these kids, and they won't see it if I'm in my shell. But now I was able to reverse that shyness habit and I can talk to anyone about my company. And the cool thing is, I was able to meet amazing people because I was reversing that detrimental habit. That's the key. Great things can happen out of reversing your bad habits that you once had. And I remember this was really recent. It was like 2 weeks ago, I think. I was getting my second vaccine for COVID-19, and there were these teenagers and young adults that were helping with the whole vaccine clinic at my school. And my dad came with me. And as you know, a couple weeks ago, I just released this podcast. So he challenged me and he was like, go tell this group of people about the podcast you released. And I was like, Dad, I'm not the little girl you saw anymore. Like, I got this and I can talk to people now. And he was like, okay, we'll see. And sure enough, I talked to them and I even made some new connections. But it all came down to reversing my habits. And I think the really cool thing about it is that now I'm able to see from other people's perspectives, other people's point of view, and I'm able to share with them my amazing gift and talent that I have in me. And that was all because I reversed that habit, and my parents helped me reverse that habit. So clearly, habits determine what road your life will travel on. Your routines become such a big part of your life that it determines your future. But the good thing is, you can always change your habits. Even though it's quite difficult, you can still change your habits. Good habits allow you to reach your goals. So, the first tip I have for everyone is one, be honest with yourself and the habits that you're setting. Habits will be the foundation for your life. They are the building blocks to life. Your habits will make you a joyful person if those are the habits that you choose. You can choose the kind of life you want to live. You will have days where you don't feel like it, but your habits will get you through because they can replace your motivation sometimes. But isn't it so weird that even when habits are detrimental to us, we find it so difficult to break away from them? They're planted deep within us, and it takes a great deal of effort to uproot them. Just like how that stubborn little child was trying to uproot that tree, it was so hard for him to uproot it from the ground. That's how our habits become once we let them continue and grow over time. But it's like a bad relationship. You know you need to end the relationship that's making you live in misery, but it has a hold on every aspect of your life. So you just keep it going. You can just let it happen. But if you're gonna have a happy and productive life, you have to decide to handle it. So it's not just about developing good habits. It's about getting away from your bad habits as well. These are the reasons that you failed or are unhappy, so you must be honest with yourself. Identify the habit. Do you always run late? Do you drink too much? Do you overspend? And get into that honestly and get serious about changing it. Okay, so now that we've identified the habit that has to go, what's next? The second tip is to slowly replace your bad habits with good ones. Now, experts say that going cold turkey is not the best way to do it. Bad habits make you feel rewarded too. So when you stop, you feel deprived and you want to crave that reward that you just got used to, and it becomes a magnet to you again. So the best thing is to replace the bad habit with a good one that offers you the same kind of comfort and the reward. And this replacement should be something that you enjoy. It's not something that you should force on yourself. It will not effectively replace the bad habit if it doesn't make you happy or excited or comfortable. Now, the key to changing habits is to identify your context cue, and that's what triggers the habit to come out, and then modify your routine and your reward. Okay, so for example, let's say your habit is to down. You just when you wake up in the morning, you down 2 cups of coffee. Like that's your habit. And I mean, you just skip brushing your teeth or actually waking up and you travel straight to the coffee machine in the kitchen to get that boost of energy. But you want to change that habit because you realize you tend to get a little too excited throughout the day and your brain becomes static, and you would rather prefer to start your day running in a different direction. So, how you do this is that first you want to determine your context cue. Like we talked about earlier, every habit is based on a simple loop, which is your context cue, your routine, and then your reward. So the cue, if for those of you who forgot, the cue is the trigger that is based on some craving and shifts your brain into autopilot that initiates the routine. So, since your habit is to drink coffee first thing in the morning, you may crave a sense of immediate control to dominate the day. Or maybe you're craving a boost of energy so you can last throughout the day. But whenever you feel an urge for a habit, that urge is the cue. Now you need to determine the routine. Now, this is the easy part because the routine is simply the manifestation of the habit. It's the cookie at break time, or the web surfing at lunch, or in this case, drinking coffee first thing in the morning. Now you need to determine the reward. This is kind of the hard part because it's not always easy to determine. Maybe the reward you get from this habit of drinking coffee in the morning is that you have this feeling of control. Maybe it's, I can last a day even though I'm riding on 2 hours of sleep from last night, kind of relief. So think about what craving your habit is really satisfying. Like, think about why it's satisfying. Maybe it can be totally different from what you're expecting. Maybe going to the break room for a cup of coffee might not really be satisfying a coffee urge, but maybe you're craving the chance to hang out with other people and getting coffee is just an excuse. So you need to work really hard to identify the reward so you don't deny yourself the reward when you're creating this new habit, and you make sure that you get the reward in a more positive and constructive way. And now the next part to this is changing the routine. Now, I'm pretty sure we all don't like the word no. Everything that is forbidden somehow seems more attractive. So instead of stopping a bad thing, do something else instead. At first, your brain will keep on leading you back to your bad habit, but you must be firm and consistent and keep doing what you want to enforce. You may need to try a new reward, but you need to stay with it. For example, maybe instead of downing 2 cups of coffee, try hot tea instead. Or if you're a runner, you could take a mile run in the morning, or you could do some yoga to start your day off in an enjoyable way. Or if the problem is you lack sleep, you lack energy, try sleeping in earlier or take naps throughout the day to prioritize your health. Or I have a fun one. Maybe you can have your wake up alarm set to your favorite song. So when you wake up, you can dance your way out of bed and you can be more awake throughout your day. So remember to be firm with yourself. Leaving habits take a lot of work. Keep focused and the positive outcome to keep yourself motivated. And find things that will make the bad habit painful and it will stop being rewarding so your brain will cooperate with you. Like for example, like this example here, we are addicted to coffee and that's our bad habit. What's the bad thing about that? It makes our brain all staticky throughout the day and we just feel nauseous because of that. And then your brain will be like, uh-oh, this is not okay. I don't feel good because of this habit. And they'll slowly try to reverse it. And then the last step I have for you all is to write it down. And studies show that the easiest way to implement a new habit and anything is to write a plan. And the format is simple. So for this version, for this example, I'll provide you an example. So this is the coffee addiction one. When I wake up in the morning, that's the trigger. I will drink hot tea and put on my favorite playlist. That's the new routine because that will wake me up and help me dominate my day. And the last part is the reward. So let me repeat it one more time. When I wake up in the morning, that's the trigger. I will drink hot tea and put on my favorite playlist. That's the new routine. Because that will wake me up and help me dominate my day. Now, last part is the reward. And maybe I'll do some power moves before leaving the house. Who knows? But do that enough times, and eventually your new habit will become automatic and you'll be more productive. And then don't forget to reward yourself. Congratulate yourself for doing something good for yourself because you just broke a habit. And those things are extremely hard to break. So make sure you congratulate yourself. You know what time it is? It's quote of the day time. For this week's episode, we have a quote from the one and only Warren Buffett. And he says, "The chains of habits are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken." End quote. Whew, that is one powerful quote right there. Now, the most important lesson to take from this episode is that your habits decide your future. Now, you can cut down on your bad habits by number 1, being honest with yourself and the habits that you're setting. And 2, slowly replace your bad habits with good ones. And how you do that is by determining what your cue is, your context cue, your routine, the reward of the bad habit, and then change that routine and replace it with a better habit that will give you the same satisfaction but is better for you, your health, your body, and your lifestyle. And then after that, write the plan down in order to help dominate that bad habit. And remember, depending on what they are, our habits will either make us or break us. We become what we repeatedly do. Thank you all so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. You just listened to Mental Mondays with Savanna. Make sure you click the subscribe button to receive more positivity every Monday and join the fam. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next week.